Hello, everybody. I'm Jez Corden from the Xbox2 podcast and also executive editor, apparently, at windowscentral.com. And I am joined today for a special episode of Xbox2+1, our first ever game developer interview. And I'm joined by a very special team, the
Woo-hoo.
team over at Stoic. And
Hello.
hi there, guys. Um,
Hello.
I'm I'm joined by John and Arnie, and if you guys would just like to quickly introduce yourselves to the XB2 universe and give us a little bit
Yeah.
of background on what you do, that'd be awesome.
Go ahead, Arnie.
I'm Arnie Jorgensen. I'm the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder with John.
Yep, and I'm John Watson, one of the co-founders with Arnie and Chief Technical Officer.
Little known fact, although we say it in so many meetings, John and I worked together for about 12 years before we started Stoic. So we've been working together for quite some time, about 25
Yeah,
years.
25 years.
Oh
Yeah.
damn! What were you doing beforehand? Did you guys found Stoic together?
Yeah, we did
No,
in
John and I
2012.
with one other person, Alex Thomas, who's no longer an owner. He went and did his own really cool game right after Banner Saga 1. Even though he came back and he's working with us right now as a writer, which is fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, previous to that, John, go ahead. What'd you do at Sony and BioWare?
Yeah, before, I guess my first game job was at Sony Online making Star Wars Galaxies. So that was a really cool experience because it's very unique. And Arnie was on that too.
You
And Arnie did a bunch of art,
did. I
which
did a lot
was
of art
awesome.
there. I was head production designer on Star Wars Galaxies, and then we both went pretty similarly. I think it was a couple months earlier to BioWare to do Star Wars: The Old Republic, and they worked together there as well.
Yeah, I stayed on DC Universe for about 6 months before I went to BioWare.
Oh
That's right.
man,
I actually forgot.
Star Wars: The Old
Yeah.
Republic, man. You know what? When that game dropped, I took 2 weeks off work, and I grinded that game like crazy, and I was
Yeah.
Was it
like,
worth it?
yeah, I mean, at the time, like I was a big Warcraft junkie, as most of the podcast listeners are absolutely
So was
tired
I.
of me talking about. But I was looking for something new, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, right? The Old Republic.
Yeah.
When that dropped, I was so hopelessly addicted to it, but. Sorry, I'm just dealing with a technical issue. So apparently the aspect
Oh,
ratio
okay.
on the live feed
No,
is completely messed up.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I left after we launched the game, and then it went on to, it's still going. There's still people that love the game when they went free to play and
Yeah.
everything. But I think we gave it a really good base. It was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, my team was the combat team. I was the lead combat programmer, and so anything that moved, attacked, swung, took damage, gave damage, blaster bolts, lightsabers, animated, that was all our team. And I was really happy with the way that came out. I played a lot of the Sith warrior who
Oh man,
was
I was
he had
addicted
such
to
great
playing
mobility.
yeah, I played a bounty hunter tank, and I
What was the
grinded so
agent?
hard that I ended up like this monster in PvP, and like no one could kill me. It was probably the most fun I've had in
I love it.
PvP in an MMO ever, with Hotball and
Yeah.
stuff.
That's awesome.
It was so awesome.
It's
But
really
anyways,
cool.
we're not here to talk about Star Wars: The Old Republic, as cool as it
No.
is. We're here to talk about your fantastic Towerborne, which I've been
Yeah,
quite mildly addicted to over the past week. So,
awesome.
at a high level, I really want to know, like, how did the concept for Towerborne come together? Because obviously, it's quite the divergence from the Banner Saga. I think you would mind me saying.
Mhm.
But let me jump off. Let me start with this, John, because I have opened the next game pillars. So we were finishing up Banner Saga 3, and we knew we wanted to do a bigger game. We knew we wanted to do a live game, so we started hiring people before the end of Banner Saga 3. So we would kind of, ramp into the next game. And so John and I got together and we go, what are the pillars for the next game that we're going to do? And here they are. We wanted it to be a continuous loop. The game has great depth with overlapping long, medium, short-term goals, the usual thing that you expect in a living game. We want endless content. We want it to be community driven, which we can talk about a bit today. We're really excited to get feedback from the community and have them help us build out the game. wanted it to be approachable. I'm actually reading off of a document right now that's like 6 years old. We wanted it to
Well,
watch. Now that
Dusty.
this is yeah. This is fun to watch was important to us because we were coming off the depression simulator called Banner Saga, and it was a slow game that people would walk by in like a convention and go, "Oh, this game looks awesome. I'll play it later." But nobody would want to step up to a story-based game, play it, or watch other people play it. So that, for some reason, that was important to us. And personalization, we wanted customization to be big. And then finally, we wanted it to be sandboxy, like emergent experiences. And that one is grayed out. So we took that one off at a certain point. But those were the high end pillars that we wanted to do. And how did we think we could do a game like this? It's because we come from, as you know now, an MMO background for well over a decade, and previous to that, previous to Sony, I would work on a large game development as well. So we felt kind of confident. People would ask us "What makes you think you could do a game like this after Banner Saga?" And the funniest part was we'd never done a game like Banner Saga. It was just a game we thought we could do with 3 people, and we kind of made it up as we went. And it turned out great. But that was the one-off for us. We weren't really sure how to approach that, and we just did our best.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, go on.
you want me to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So 2 things that were important to us that kind of come out of that is, for it to be replayable, it needs to be more mechanics driven. Banner Saga had really cool mechanics in the tactical combat, but they weren't open ended. You couldn't just keep adding new classes and new weapons and new.
I think it would have fallen over if we did Banner Saga 4. We couldn't
it
maintain
doesn't
it.
really scale. The mechanics don't scale. We're like, all right, we want to make something that we can actually iterate on the mechanics, and the players can really get in the nitty gritty with it. So that was one of our motivations. Let's make a different game system that is driven more by the mechanics than the story. And Towerborne certainly has a story and it certainly has narrative, but the mechanics are kind of take the front seat. And the other thing that's really important to us is the community aspect. We really feel like the community, having an engaged community for a game, is sort of a superpower for that game, and it really gives it longevity and gives it legs, gives you energy as a developer, gives you motivation to cater to that community.
It's like playing a cool concert to a crowd that's into it rather than.
One of the things we did, Banner Saga 1 was so difficult to make because there were so few of us working on it. There were only 3 full-time developers, and we had a lot of help from our friends at Powerhouse and Kapow on a contract basis, but it was extremely hard. And when we finished it, part of that was the work we did to promote it and to maintain our Kickstarter community and all these things. So unwisely, when we went into Banner Saga 2, we're like, well, we can start developing Banner Saga 2, and we have enough money to do it now because Banner Saga 1 was successful enough to pay for the next game. So we don't really have to talk to anybody at all. So let's just close the doors and windows and work on the game in peace. And then
That's what people wanted. Let's just get it out fast. Right.
And 2 years later, we released Banner Saga 2, and it was like crickets, and
Nobody even knew it came out.
months later, we were talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, it's out!" I'm like, "Yes, it's out." Oh my God, what happened? And that's when we realized that we can't ever just go silent with our community anymore. So with Banner Saga 3 and onward, we have a full-time community manager, and we carried that philosophy into Towerborne. It's like, let's make a game that's based on the community, that integrates the community into the game. And I know that it's not that unusual for games overall. I'm not saying we have some kind of secret sauce or anything, but we think it's really important to engage with your community, and it really can make the difference in an ocean of games to choose from, and an ocean of games competing with for players' time. That community can be like the make or break thing. So we think it's important.
We started before Banner Saga 1 came out too, John. We did Banner Saga Factions, and we literally just released the combat of Banner Saga, hoping that players could help us balance it and find bugs, and we did that. And every day we would take feedback from them. We would rebuild classes, we changed damages, and we had a blast with that. And then after Factions was kind of done, and we rolled into the work of doing Banner Saga 1, a single player game. We kind of went dark as we did that, except for talking to the community with Kickstarter. But we lost that feeling of every single day talking to the community. So that was one of the most fun parts of Banner Saga for me.
Yeah, and kicking off and kicking off Towerborne, we explicitly hearkened to that. We're like, how do we
Yeah.
have that again? How do we have that experience again? That was amazing. And that community is like still, some of that community is still with us.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've kind of answered into one of my questions, which was gonna be like, why early access and why game preview and stuff like that, and
Oh, yeah.
and of
Mhm.
course, like there's the whole feedback loop and things like that. But are there sort of like, what are some of the biggest feedback loops that you've received from the Steam early access before? Because as you know, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this already know that Towerborne is hitting Xbox Game Preview and Xbox Game Pass on April
Mhm.
29th, I think.
Yeah.
Top of my head.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the
2 weeks
biggest
from today.
feedback that you've addressed ahead of that launch? Because I will say for myself that I played Towerborne. I think it was either Summer Game Fest or Gamescom last year. I can't remember
It was
which.
Gamescom.
It was
I think it was
Gamescom.
Gamescom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. I think I remember there being like a big set piece kind of there, and it being awesome
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was very impressed with it as a sort of Gunstar Heroes, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage kid growing up.
Uh-huh.
But like when I came and played it again at Christmas, when it hit Steam Early Access, and I just found myself with some time to try it out, I was a bit iffy on it then, because I was like, well, I don't know. I couldn't really feel how much progress had been made since then. And
Mhm.
so for me, as someone who, I don't play a lot of early access games, it's kind of hard, I think, for me to gauge what the finished product will be like, I suppose.
Mhm.
So I suppose that
Yeah.
maybe I don't know, a sort of one of the risks of early access, maybe, and we can talk about that more in a minute. Um, but following through to the most recent build, I found it to be far more polished, far more varied, and far more interesting to play, with a great
Yeah.
feel and a much broader variety. So,
Right.
what's some of
Yeah.
the feedback you're sort of keen to address, and now and in the near future, I suppose, is what I would want to ask.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest, most impactful things we've changed for the April 29th launch is the class system. So the class, what we call internally the class mastery system, but it's basically a class skill tree that allows you to select all the different combat abilities you want to take in a battle with you. It's much more flexible and varied than what we had before. So when we went into early access last fall, basically your abilities were tied to your weapon, very specifically tied to the specific weapon you found in the loot drop. And it wasn't very flexible. And that was something that we didn't feel great about. And the players also gave us feedback about that. So that's the single biggest change. There's a lot of other changes too, but that change to the class system, when you go into the class page of near the loadout screen, you find all those skills you can assign. And now you can customize yourself exactly how you want to play. So I'd say that's
And
a big one. That's a big one.
that's the huge one that John said, but there's a lot of stuff supporting that as well. Like the gear and itemization has gone through a huge change, and it's way cooler now to kind of support that uh, that class system. Like items roll stats. There's an affix system that you get an item and it'll randomly roll stats within a range. That was really cool. Actually, that's something I think you were poking at a little bit, Jez, in your article. It's interesting that you were thinking that they don't roll stats, because they do. We've
Oh,
added a ton of legendaries and epics. I'm sorry, what's that?
oh, I think maybe because I should
I
have
think that
wrote this in the article, but I and I think I did plan to write this in the article, but for just being a terrible writer, I forgot to put it in. But I wanted to caveat what I was writing by saying this represents fairly low level play, because in the back of my head
Mhm.
I was thinking like,
Mm.
well, when you're low level in Diablo or low level in World of
Yeah.
Warcraft, you don't get the sexier gear, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah.
you get
I did
the higher
intend
you
to
go in
put
this.
that in there as a caveat.
Well, there is a UI element that shows you the range of that the role can be within, but that UI element wasn't present in the build you were playing. So
Ah,
It's
right,
turned off by
okay.
default.
yeah,
But there's as you get further, Jazz, you'll find legendaries, epics, like pretty high-end, cool itemization. It's in the game right
yeah,
now. But the thing about early access, and And you said that you like to play games pretty much when they're finished, and and with a living game like we're doing, when is it finished? So
Yeah.
we're living in a this right now because there are some major tent poles that we want to that we still want to fill out. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this stuff, but there's some major pieces that we want the players to get their hands on, get feedback with before actually going live with
Yeah.
the game. But once we go live, we're going to continue to put more itemization, and we're going to continue to add story beats and randomized missions and more backgrounds and all that stuff. It's just going to keep
Yeah.
going.
And like some of the feedback we got led us to make more, Arnie mentioned more randomized missions, but also custom handcrafted content from the feedback
Oh,
we got.
a
And so there's a
lot.
lot more of that in this build. There's the way we were doing storytelling was leaning a little bit more into the environmental storytelling area when we started early access. And based on feedback, we've shifted the weight more to a directed narrative. It's still environmental storytelling, but there's more emphasis on the directed narrative, the conversations you have with the NPCs and the things they actually say to you. Just a couple
Right.
examples of feedback that we
I
used.
think also, I think also, Jez, some of your feedback, saying, "Hey, I didn't see the game improving by Christmas." It's hard. Like when you're in game development, there's things that we want to do, and you start moving towards them, but there's a ton of tools and systems you have in order to, do those things. So sometimes it takes a little while to roll them out,
Yeah,
especially when you're
we
doing it
can
for the first.
we can talk about a little bit about something you brought up, is like why early access, and why is
Yeah.
that useful to us? And for us, it gives us time to fine tune the game and flesh out all the parts for the fairly limited audience who is biased toward being interested in helping, in giving feedback. And they're invested, and they want this game to be good and exist. That's kind of the mindset of a lot of early access players, especially when there's a pay gate, which there is, with the founders packs. So
Yeah, true.
you automatically get an audience that's like, it's kind of, you're bringing them in almost part of the team, whereas the game will eventually be free to play. And when the doors are fully open as a free to play game, hopefully this time in early access has made it as good as possible, so that the most number of people coming will stick to it and play. When it's free to play, there's no investment and people can just browse into the game, and it won't be, no game will be for everybody. When it's free to play, you'll get a lot of people who just bounce off. But we want to put the best possible foot forward, and with
Yeah.
early access, it
Sure.
allows us to have our audience that loves the game kind of already.
Yeah, and I suppose
Something to be
like,
said about that. Oh, go on.
sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say that the final nail in why free to play. This game was originally pitched and designed as going free to play. Like from the very get go, it was in the DNA of the game, and we got to give some props to Xbox for seeing that through. That this sort of thing is semi new to Xbox, and they were really supporting us on it. So it was great to do.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like Xbox has some experience with free to play. Like Killer
Mhm.
Instinct was premium, I think, initially, and then it eventually went free to play, or maybe it was the other
Mhm.
way around, and it got like a premium edition later. I can't remember, but until they started acquiring some of the other companies that they did, I suppose they didn't really have much of a free to play pillar besides solitaire, right? Which sort of
Yeah.
dovetails a little bit into another question I had, which is, how do you balance like free to play in the sort of modern era? Because there's so much commentary out there about free to play, and I feel
Mhm.
like Towerborne sort of, it represents, at least for me, and I always try to be cognitive of my biases when I'm discussing games and stuff like that, as much as I humanly can. Like I'm so scatterbrained these days, doing a million different things. But I try to be as conscious as possible. And for me, the genre that you guys have sort of lent into is quite a nostalgic kind of genre, especially for people of my age and maybe
Right.
a bit older, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I think there's a definitive set of expectations there with that nostalgia on top of it, right? And I did read your FAQ about Towerborn and how like the idea is for the free to play element to be purely cosmetic, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So,
fairly cosmetic, some convenience items, but no leveling, no power.
yeah,
There's
so
no pay to win.
yeah, and I really appreciate that for first and foremost, and you know, and obviously free to play is a great vehicle for getting a potentially a large scale very quickly. But one of the
Right.
things I'm sort of like, I suppose a little concerned about as a Diablo player, and because at least superficially, I think with Towerborne, there is some vague similarities to me in how I feel
Yeah.
towards Diablo about how I'm feeling about Towerborne in I want to
Mhm.
kill monsters, chase loot, to make my character more powerful, so on and so forth, rinse and repeat, right? Um,
Yep.
but one thing that's really bugged me lately about Diablo is that a lot of the best cosmetics have to be purchased.
Mhm.
So I think it kind of it takes some of the fun out of killing a monster and getting a cool cosmetic that way as well. But at the same
Right.
time, you've got to actually fund development, and Diablo isn't even free to play. So
Yeah.
even though like it's not paid for, and like I mean it's not power progression, paying for power progression. How do you balance like the sense of earning cosmetic rewards in game versus paying for them outright? Is it going to be like battle pass oriented, or is there going to be like direct purchases, or how are you guys philosophizing about some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we want to have uh, both types of things to collect, things that you can grind for and earn through the game, things that you can buy, and there will be some things you can only buy for sure. Um, I don't know that hopefully it's not the case that the coolest stuff is only available for purchase. I hope there's a nice mix.
Or do
And that's
we? I don't know.
it.
But
Yeah, well,
there is a bunch of awesome cosmetics you can still get through curios and whatnot. But just to, I'm by the way, John, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm
that's
only
cool.
going to say I'm not going to lean totally into this question, only because I am not the economics expert on the team. I think we're going to be launching with the lightest touch we can on free to play and see how it goes. Um,
Yeah, we want
Usually
players
find
to see it.
discussions.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
hope I
I
I hope the
appreciate that.
players see it like a hobby. It's like they play this game as a hobby, and they may or may not like to collect all this stuff and try out all these different things. And if they like it as a hobby, then they can spend money as a hobby, and it's not exploitative. It's not trying to take advantage of the player. It's not trying to trick them at all. We have a very you know strict way of looking at this. This is not a mobile free to play game that's trying to squeeze hundreds of dollars a month out of people.
I
Right.
feel that. I
There's
mean,
a place
And
for that. Like, there's a place for that. Some people like that, but that's not what this game is.
yeah.
And now Trisha's coming to my aid because she just pinged me. Trisha's our CEO and president. She says also limited events will have cool cosmetics to earn and not buy. So
Yeah.
there
Ah,
are going to be different ways to get these cosmetics for sure.
And in fact, we
Yeah,
practiced those limited events during early access. We did several where it's like, okay,
that's
yeah, for
right.
this holiday season, for
Yeah,
this Halloween week, for this,
yep,
Thanksgiving sort of fall festival thing, get in the game. You have is like a week or 2 weeks, finish these
yep.
quests, get the thing, and it's not going to show up again until next year, if ever. So there's lots of that, lots of rewards for just playing the game.
that's really cool
But
to hear. Um,
yeah.
you know,
And
I
when you buy into when you buy into the things like the monthly things like this, it's not like battle pass in the sense where classic battle pass is you buy the access to the thing, you do all the tasks required of you before the end of the month, and you get all the rewards. And if you don't by the end of the month, you're just SOL, right?
yeah,
And we're not doing that at all. Like, once you buy the pack, you can unlock everything at your leisure, like over years if you want to.
that's
You don't
cool.
have to worry about missing out. Once you've paid for it, it's yours. It's
That's
not going to be
awesome.
like it's not like yank it away
Yeah.
from you.
I mean, like, cause like I say, like there is sort of a bias in my head about like Streets of Rage and Golden Axe didn't have that kind of thing, but they also weren't free to play, right? They also weren't
Mhm.
something I could like say to a friend, "Hey, come and play this with me," and I don't have to try and convince them to buy it, right? So that's like
Yeah,
Right.
a benefit of that model, I think, incredibly well.
yeah.
And
That's
Yeah,
ultimately
and
that's the
those
driving.
games are also, you play them for 4 to 6 hours or something, and it's done.
yeah, I
And
feel
that's
you.
the driving motivation for free to play, really, for this game. For this game, that's community-based, group-based combat sessions. It really benefits from having a bunch of people playing it. We want a low barrier to entry, and that's what free to play really represents to us. Is like, how do you make this game accessible or available to as many people as possible?
Yeah.
And
Beyond the free or not free or whatever, when we first started talking about, like, we're going to do Towerborne, we wanted it to be a side-scrolling beat 'em up style combat because it's a low barrier to entry for people. You grab the controller, you start mashing buttons. Even in Towerborne, which has a very high skill ceiling, there's a very low skill floor on that. You can hop in and play. So when I first started talking about Towerborne, I started downloading all the old beat 'em ups, the Dungeons and Dragons ones, and whatnot, and I played with my kids, and they were totally into it. It was the first time they'd been playing, and I was like, okay, I think we're onto something. So it was really important to us also to do couch co-op, which is not easy to do. We realize why a lot of games don't do it. There's a lot of people out there, they're like, why isn't this game couch co-op? As if you flip a switch, it's a big deal. It's
it's
hard to do.
particularly hard on an online game where accounts are involved. So it's like you have to make
Oh, man.
decisions about that. Like, okay, second player connects. Is it like a throwaway character? Do they get to customize it at all? Is it tied to an account? Like, those are questions
They
you
have
have to
to play
answer.
through the Fatui again, right?
Yeah, right. They have the
A
tutorial.
myriad of issues that pop up.
Yeah,
But we're
like
doing it.
even
We're really happy about
a lot of big AAA games haven't figured that out. Like Monster Hunter Wilds is a game that comes to mind where it's like just getting in a match with someone in that game is like so complicated.
It's-
And then like in Towerborn, it's just like, plug and play, right? To some degree.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and that's a good
The more
point. That's
tools
another
you
thing
make
that we
it, the
learned.
harder it was to do. Yeah.
yeah.
That's another big thing we learned over the last 6 months of early access that we've been involved in. Is like we're playing the game and we realize, like, man, it is really hard to get in a group and really hard to start playing with somebody. And we've spent a lot of time over the last few months really streamlining that and making it so much easier to just get in a group and play with people. That's because that's what the game is all about. Like, if you spend most of your time wishing you were in a group playing and fighting monsters, then we're doing something wrong. You need to wish it and it needs to come true.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, you mentioned like going back and taking a look at some of those classic kind of games, like like Golden Axe is the one I
Dragon.
keep thinking of. But I feel like
Mhm.
Towerborn builds quite heavily on that. And then I was surprised to read back in the day that it was there's some Killer Instinct pedigree in the game
Oh,
in the
yeah.
combat
Mhm.
design. And then I was like, and then it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Some of the moves do kind of feel like that,
Mhm.
because I played Killer Instinct for a fair bit. So I suppose as we wrap up here and get round to our half our allotted time slot, I should say.
Mhm.
Um, I just I kind of want to ask a little bit more about what it's like to work with Xbox as a sort of an independent studio on what is essentially it's an Xbox published game, right? It's not Idea Xbox.
Yeah.
So
Right, it's Xbox.
yeah, so first of all, what's it like to work with Xbox as an independent team and all that kind of stuff? But also, finally, if I was to describe what are some of the games that really inspired you to put this, quite unique blend of genres together? Um,
Yeah. Well, I can touch on, working with Xbox. It's been great. Like we when we were pitching this game around and shopping it around, we talked to a lot of potential partners, and it was clear at the end of that process that Xbox was the best option. And that was borne out over the next 5 years that we've been working. I
We
mean,
had
they have,
multiple. Yeah.
yeah, we got to see kind of the inside of other possibilities as well. And the thing that was really impressive about Xbox from the beginning and throughout is that they were really bought into the idea of the game. They got it. They're like, oh yeah, we see what you're making here, and we want that. You know, we like it, and we would love to have it on our platform. It wasn't just sort of like, yeah, okay, well, better maybe. It wasn't transactional. It was like a bought in emotional thing. And Xbox has a lot of expertise. It's got a lot of experts in house. It's got a lot of resources, of course, because it's Microsoft. They have a cloud platform. They have a gaming platform and so on. And we got a lot of help. We had people embedded in the team, on a technical aspect or a design aspect. and
Talking
other
about
areas
Killer
as well.
Instinct. Yeah,
Say it again, Arnie.
yeah, combat. Jez was talking about Killer Instinct, and very early
Yeah.
on, we definitely got a foot up from working with Xbox.
Yeah,
'Cause they
James
helped
was
us.
there, and he had all that experience from Killer Instinct and Street Fighter as well. And it's like, here's how you need to design your combat editor. Like, we made a custom move editor for the game, and it's like, this is how you do it. Like, you gotta
Yeah.
have you gotta have these input windows, and you gotta be able to specify them on the frames like this, and you gotta have the branch points for the combat like this, and so on and so forth. And that really put us along the path of having a good tool set, a good foundation to really
That's a great leg
expand
up.
on
And by the way,
combat.
yeah, John's talking about James Goddard,
Yeah,
who
James Goddard.
Yeah.
and then eventually, we hired Isaac, and man, he took over and he's killing it right now. Him and his combat
Yeah.
team are just amazing.
And we had folks like technical folks, Jeremy Ingholm's in there all the time. And the guy's a wizard, like a straight up wizard. He works
No
at
joke.
Xbox. He's an engineer. And without him, it would have been a lot harder. And we got access to other studios. Like I mentioned Rare before. Rare has been extremely helpful. Like, even though they've got their own stuff to do, they're every game developer is always short on time, right? But they've been very gracious with theirs.
Yeah, the combat is something I absolutely cannot fault. It's so much fun to like aerial juggle like a huge group of
Yep,
enemies and stuff with the boomstick.
yep.
Really, and I haven't even really tried the other weapons yet because I've just been like, fiddling around with the boomstick. There's so many different ways to use it,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And especially with the new class mastery system, you can really, the number of ways have expanded by an order of magnitude, really.
Yeah,
The
that's
number of
You and I,
combinations.
you, me, and John could all three have sentinels and build them very, very differently. It's
Yeah.
really great.
And they're all quite different classes too, because like they have a lot of variety within them. But I play a lot of Shadow Striker, the dual daggers, and no matter how you spec it out, that's a pretty mobile class. If you like mobility and being able to move around the board quickly, that's kind of your deal. And they all have their own unique signature kind of feel to them.
Isn't dual daggers redundant? Shouldn't it just be daggers?
Well, no, because it could be triple dagger. If you said daggers, it leaves it open. It could be 3, it could be 20 daggers.
Oh, good
That
point.
is
Yeah,
true.
it's just more than one.
That is true. All right. Well, I think we've come up to the end of our time here today. I really want to thank you guys for joining me on this interesting experiment. I had some technical issues at the start, which kind of threw me off. So I apologize for that. Oh man, Streamlabs OBS was just like, you know what, we're gonna throw, dual aspect ratio streaming on top of that, and I didn't realize until after I'd hit go live that it was turned on. So I apologize for that.
No, it's no problem at all, man. Thanks for having us on the show. I'm going to end. Yeah, I'm going to end by saying, like, we earnestly hope, Jez, that you keep playing the game. We hope you dig it. Go, play your other favorite games, but then come back a month later and check out, what the updates are and everything. I think this game's going to be something special pretty soon.
I definitely will. It's my genre. It's my kind of genre. These are the games I played nonstop as a kid, and and obviously I'm hopelessly addicted to games like anything with looting and stats. I'm there, right?
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
And one thing I really appreciate about Towerborne, which is something I also didn't touch on in the article, which I wanted to touch on. I really should plan my articles better. But the fact that you can just jump on and, like this morning I did it. I jumped on and had like 10 minutes with the game before I started work. Because like you can do a short mission, you can do a longer mission, all that kind of stuff. It respects your time while also giving you the option to really go crazy with it if you want. So so much other stuff I'd wanna dig into, but like you said, game developers are pressed for time, so I won't keep you for now.
Well, we're happy to come back whenever you want to have us again. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. Like maybe when there's a big update drop and we can get into the details on it.
Yeah, man.
But for everyone listening, thanks for joining XB2+1. I've been Jez Corin from Windows Central, joined by the team at Stoic, talking about Towerborne, which hits Xbox Game Preview on April 29th, also on Game Pass, PC Game Pass, Xbox Play Anywhere, and it's available on Steam in early access with the Founders Pack, I believe. So yeah, thanks for joining me. And I'll see you all in the next one.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Jazz. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.